just, request everyone to watch the movie again and contact Chris for circulating it to your friends and organizations. Now, I take this time to, express my gratitude to all the speakers, the eminent speakers, the keynote speakers, as well as the people, colleagues who have moderated. I particularly want to, first of all, thank collaborators, AP Mahila Commission and Red Cross Movement, and we all have to support them from our university side. We also want to express, our colleague, Professor Rekha Pandey, for moderating, and Dr. Ramalu for moderating the second section beautifully. And I want to thank all the panel speakers. And I divide the group into three. One is law enforcement officials who have spoken from a law point of view, and they've expressed certain challenges and certain kind of loopholes that exist. But I must say that in the South, particularly here in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, and also in Kerala, the police are well trained sophisticatedly as compared to Northeast state. When I started my research in 2008 in Manipur, none of the police are trained. In fact, I spoke to 3 IPS officers who are my contemporary and friends. They just told me that they don't have even one case in which they have dealt with. And I kind of challenged them later on in 2017. 2012, when I went back, there are a lot of police officials who confirmed that they've started training the police to take up trafficking cases, because child trafficking is rampant. That's when my work on trafficking of children and women were published in EPW as a special review of women's study, and one is in the pipeline again in EPW with regard to my latest work. So what I'm trying to say is that police are far, far better in South India than in the Eastern India, especially in Northeast states. Now, Northeast states are slowly catching up, but there's a huge gap because now during this COVID-19 period, the cybercrime is exorbitantly high, and the police, even the FBI in US, and also here in South Asia or other parts of Asia, the police cannot really catch the culprit. So we are in a we are having an invisible war with coronavirus, but we're also having another invisible war with these traffickers. So this is a huge, huge battle we live in. And I'm grateful to all the police officials, and then I'm really grateful to UNICEF, especially to our respectable Sony George, for connecting the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN with the issue of ending violence against women, children, and connecting it to ending of trafficking in our country and also in other parts of the world. And he has actually brought out the Sustainable Development Goals very, very, in a very subtle way, and also very clearly, very clearly. So I'm sure that our scholars are benefited by his lecture. And when I, reflect on the other panelist, Biju, who actually narrated his own experience in Kerala, how he have, witnessed child trafficking, and that led him to work among the children. And of course, his talk is closely related to what Matt Nathaniel have also mentioned about the toddlers and children. These are very critical issues. I have worked on children, and many other people have worked on women. Professor Yu Bindia and group from Hyderabad have been working on the Dalit women, trafficking of Dalit women from a feminist perspective. And we have many other scholars who have been working on tribal women. I work on tribal women and Northeast women particularly, but I have not come across any scholarly work on the toddlers, on babies. So this is a new perspective, and I'm sure some of our research scholars may like to take up research on trafficking of toddlers connecting to sex workers. So I feel that both Biju and Nathaniel have brought out a new research areas, emerging research areas for our students. And I really like the way that Matt have highlighted about the focus group discussion, which is a methodology our students also use very often in interdisciplinary study centers like Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy Center. So and of course, you know, I cannot ignore the importance that Sangeeta have mentioned about the value-based practices, and she appeals for the restorative practices, you know, which should be built in our society. And she mentioned clearly that trafficking is a complex multifactorial issue, and that prevention requires community involvement as well as initiative and participation. I want to share with you that this model which Sangeeta talked about, community interaction, community involvement, and also initiative and participation, is beautifully seen in some parts of Manipur and in some parts of Nagaland. The churches, the community leaders were involved in rescuing as well as reintegrating the trafficked children. And another thing, one peculiar thing is that in South India, traffic victims who, after they are rescued, they get re-trafficked again many times. This is a very serious concern that we have in the South. Whereas in states like Nagaland, Manipur, re-traffic is almost zero, you know, very minimal, just 1 or 2 cases. Otherwise, a huge majority of the people who are rescued did not get re-trafficked again. Now, this is also to do with community involvement and intervention, which Dr. Sangeeta talked about. Dr. Sangeeta Saxena has mentioned clearly that community's role is very significant. And another thing that I want to mention is by C.V. Melvin. I think what he talked about, the framework, is what I really like. The framework of policy infrastructure, the framework to build the skills and capacity. And that's what Hasina Kharvi from Impulse NGO Network, her Impulse model of you know, anti-trafficking is used by UK, Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar, and many other countries. She has rescued thousands of women from all over the country and worked closely with our own Hyderabadi Prajwala Sunita Krishnan's NGO. Last year, both of us have visited Sunita Krishnan's NGO also, where 300 rescued girls are there. And I know some of the feminists in the twin city of Hyderabad and Secunderabad are very critical of why Sunita Krishnan keeps 300 rescued girls. But after seeing with my own eyes and interacting with the girls in Sunita Krishnan's Prajwala shelter home, I really feel that it's important for some of these shelter homes to keep the girls and give them skills and capacity, because I've seen with my own eyes how the rescued victims are employed in the NGO, give them dignity, open their bank accounts so they have their own savings account. They have been trained as carpenters, you know, they have been trained to do many other embroidery jobs, and also keeping books and making stationery items for sale so that they can sustain as a main means of livelihood for them. So keeping the girls in the shelter home and training them and counseling them and rehabilitating them and finally reintegrating with the families is extremely crucial. That's what Melvin talked about: skills and capacity, and of course accountability in public demand. And he also talked about how institutional curriculums have to be made, you know. And finally, I want to mention the importance of our last speaker, Dr. Mary. I think what is most important is building the immunity, especially at this time of COVID pandemic. We have to heavily focus on building the immunity of these trafficked victims, because the virus would not be able to attack if the immunity is strong. And she has talked about how food becomes a medicine, and I really uphold her slogan that food is medicine, and also eating probiotics and consuming green leafy vegetables and all that. This sounds trivial to those who are healthy, but those who have health concerns, the seriousness of Mary's talk today. And lastly, I want to mention how Dr. Nair have talked about building up clubs by students in college and university campus as well. He didn't mention university, but I feel that university should also start, students union and student political parties can start thinking of building these clubs for anti-human trafficking, because this is a war that all of us has joined. That's what George from UNICEF also mentioned. We all have to join hands together to combat human trafficking. This is a war which we all have to win by collectively working together. And I'm sure that the objective of this symposium today is fulfilled to a large extent. And I request especially the younger generations who are a cultural and social capital to join hands with all of us in conducting research, because for our university fraternity, it's very difficult for us to work like the grassroots NGO workers, but we can join hands by talking about it, by conducting research, and also by sharing our research findings by publication. So this is what I want to mention in my wrap up. And I would like to thank Chris and for coming forward, and also for being a collaborator. And I tell you, Chris, you're still young, and this is not the end of our collaboration. We will continue to work together even in the future with our center, because Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy Center have made a mandate that we will work together with the local prominent NGOs, genuine NGOs, so we need you in the future as well. So thank you so much, everybody who stayed back till now without even 5 minutes break. It's really a marathon today, from 1:30 now till almost 6:15. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ajailiu. You've been extremely patient and very proactive in accepting our request right at the first ask. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for summarizing all of it. Thank you everyone for joining hands, standing with us through this journey of symposium. You made it memorable for us, and you made it remarkable for all.